terrifying story about Jake, the midnight hunting. Jake loved driving at night. The quiet roads and the hum of his car engine always calmed him. One night, he decided to take a long drive through a rural area to clear his head. The moon was full, casting an eerie glow over the empty road. As he drove, the road seemed to get narrower, and the trees on either side grew thicker, their branches almost touching above him. He turned on the radio, but all he got was a static. Strange, he thought, but didn't think much of it. Suddenly, he saw something in his headlights. A figure was standing in the middle of the road. Jack hit the brakes, stopping just in time. It was a woman in a long white dress. Her hair covered her face. Jake's heart pounded. He honked the horn, but she didn't move. He rolled down his window. "Are you okay?" he called out. No answer. She just stood there. Jake got out of the car and took a step toward her. "Do you need help?" he asked. She slowly lifted her head, revealing dark, empty eyes. Jake froze in fear. Before he could react, she vanished into thin air. Jake's heart raced as he scrambled back into his car. He locked the doors and sped off, his hands shaking. He glanced in the rear-view mirror, expecting to see her, but the road was empty. A few miles later, the car started to sputter. The engine died, and he coasted to a stop. Jack cruised under his breath and tried to restart the car, but it wouldn't turn over. He grabbed his phone to call for help, but there was no signal. As he sat there, trying to figure out what to do, he heard a soft tapping on the window. He turned slowly and saw the woman, her face pressed against the glass, her dark eyes staring into his. Jake screamed and tried to start the car again, but it was no use. She moved around the car, her fingers trailing along the windows. Jake locked the doors, his hands trembling. Then the car shook violently, as if something was trying to get in. He closed his eyes, hoping it was a nightmare. The shaking stopped, and the air inside the car grew colder. Jake's breath fogged up in the windshield. He wiped it with his sleeve and saw the woman sitting in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead. He was too scared to move. She turned her head slowly to face him. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, her voice cold and distant. Jake's heart pounded. He reached for the door handle, but it wouldn't budge. Then she vanished, and the car started on its own. It sped down the road. the steering wheel moving by itself. Jake gripped the seat, unable to control the car. The road twisted and turned, and he felt like he was on a ride he couldn't stop. The car finally stopped at the edge of a cliff. Jake sat there, panting, his mind racing. He tried to open the door, but it was still locked. He heard the woman's whisper again, growing louder. "You can't escape." The car began to roll forward, inching closer to the edge. Jake screamed for help, but no one was there. The last thing he saw was the woman's face, her eyes filled with a cold, dark satisfaction. The car plunged over the cliff, and everything went black. When rescuers found the car the next day, Jake was missing. His car was empty, and his body was never found. To this day, people say that if you drive that road at night, you can still hear his screams echoing through the darkness. Years later, the story of Jake's disappearance turned into a local legend, whispered among the town folks. Few dared to travel that road after dark, but those who did often reported strange things. Radios filled with static, sudden cold drafts inside their cars, and, most chillingly, glimpses of a woman in white standing by the roadside. Some even claimed to have seen Jake's car in the rear view mirrors, only for it to vanish the moment they turned to look. One particularly foggy night, a young couple decided to test the legend, eager for a thrill. As they drove through the thick woods, their excitement quickly turned to dread. The temperature inside the car plummeted, and the radio sputtered with static before going silent. Suddenly, the woman in white appeared in their headlights, forcing them to stop. The couple's terrified screams echoed through the night, blending with the ghostly whispers that filled the air. By morning, their car was found abandoned at the cliff's edge, the young couple missing without a trace, adding yet another chapter to the terrifying tale of the midnight hunting.